Hi, everybody, and welcome. Are we good to start?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, welcome to the 10th Annual Seed Library Summit. This presentation is called Seed Swaps in a Time of Pandemic. And it's a true story. I'm not advancing. There we go. A couple items of housekeeping as we get going. This session is being recorded. Links to the recording will be emailed via Eventbrite a few days after the summit, and it looks like those are going to be available for a couple of weeks. We would encourage folks to write your questions in the chat, please. After this session, you will get a survey, and we would love to hear your feedback. And our contact info as speakers will be available at the end of the slide. So if you have further questions or want to do some Seed Library technical assistance or further Q&A, we're here for that. There's a special event, the premiere of the Seeds event on Ashipa. It looks like that's showing tomorrow, but there's going to be a director's talk tonight at 6 p.m. with an introduction by Ken Green of Seed Shed. So you should check that out, share that with your friends, all your seedy acquaintances, as I like to think of my seed saving folks. Please do follow us on social media. We're at Seed Libraries, and these hashtags, Seed Library Summit, Save, Share, and Seed Library are ways to connect with others about your experience and kind of share what you've learned at today's Seed Summit. To give you a sense of what we're going to be doing today, we are going to give an overview of the Queen City Seed Library, which is just one of many seed libraries in the state of Michigan. We want to talk about how we've done seed swaps in the past and then how we adapted this past spring. And we're going to go deep into the kind of nitty-gritty details of a virtual seed swap. And the hope is that after today's session, you might be able to kind of have some outline in your own mind and some real clear steps that you could take if you wanted to host a virtual seed swap of your own. We also intend to leave time for question and answer. I would like to acknowledge that Queen City Seed Library is located on the ancestral and contemporary homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. That is an important part of the work that we do in order to recognize both the relations that people and land and seeds hold, and also to recognize our partners who have attended seed events and contributed seeds to the Queen City Seed Library. All right, I think we're going to do a quick intro here. I'm Abby Palmer. I am a community food systems educator with Michigan State University Extension. I'm located not on a Saturday, but generally at the Upper Peninsula Research and Extension Center, which is a teaching and research farm located in Chatham. And I got involved with the Queen City Seed Library, I guess just because I liked seeds and gardening, and I found a really fun community of people, and it's really kind of kept me learning about seeds. So I'd like to pass it over to Mike. Would you introduce yourself, Mike?
Yes, Abby, thank you, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone who's attending this session. I'm Mike Reister, and I live in Marquette, Michigan. I think that Abby and I and a group of people started working together about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was when we started the Seed Library here in Marquette. And I'm a retired teacher, so I felt that it was a noble pursuit to support a seed library. And so we've been working together, a group of us, for 5 or 6 years, and even through a pandemic. So we'll keep pushing on. And I'm hoping today we'll be able to show people how to do that or how we do it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Rachel to introduce herself. She's listed here as chat support, but it turns out she's been quite a lot more, like full tech support, the entire spectrum of helping us navigate how to do this well. So
Good morning, good afternoon, y'all. My name is Rachel Presley. I work as an assistant regional planner for a regional planning agency in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Message me if you have any support requests. Thank you.
well, thanks, Rachel. And Rachel's also been working on a seed library project that's been getting off the ground, and maybe during Q&A or at some other time, more can come out about that. All right. So Michigan has perhaps the dubious distinction of being one of the seediest states when it comes to seed libraries. We bandy it about, I'm not sure if it's actually accurate, but I've been told that Michigan has the most seed libraries of any state. Perhaps it's that we have this handy dandy map, which was created by the Michigan Seed Library Network. But just to give you a sense of where we're at in the country, we're not actually in Canada. That's a common misconception about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a cultural and regional sort of distinction from the rest of Michigan. We're the Upper Peninsula. Part of us are in the central time zone because we're more economically connected to Wisconsin than to the rest of Michigan. But one of the things I want to point out about this location is, our climate is such that by saving seeds, we have the opportunity to do some adaptive seed saving and, kind of by saving seeds together in a community, work on varieties that are tolerant of cold, short season, and we can select for other specific traits that are unique to our area. Additionally, we're kind of at what is called the dead end of some supply lines, which was something that we sort of saw during the pandemic when we saw some empty grocery store shelves for staples. And, being that the Upper Peninsula is not really much of a pass through, right, unless you're going from, say, Lower Michigan to Duluth, that sort of the way that goods and particularly food moves through the Upper Peninsula was also a factor that made the seed library an important resource for our community during the pandemic and really at other times too. All right, here's a chance to talk about what our seed swaps were like. As Mike said, we've been working together since 2015. That was the year of our first seed swap, I think. And as you can see, they're really social events. Sometimes we have the seed savers kind of set up near the seeds that they brought so that they can talk with folks, talk about their sort of favorite parts of these seeds, how to grow this particular one, what their experience with it has been. It's also a chance for people who are interested in gardening and want to become part of a community of gardeners to get together and meet each other, because a seed swap, like any other kind of swap, it's good because it has at least one formal part, which is that, we have a purpose to be together. We showed up to exchange seeds, but there's a lot of things that happen in the margins and the fringes. And as you're waiting in line or as you're standing next to someone looking at other seeds, a lot of casual interactions take place. Where people can exchange knowledge with one another and kind of get to know each other and make new friends. And this is one of the parts of the seed swap that I absolutely love. Typically, we would ask musicians to join us for at least part of it so that we can have music, conversation, just sort of a chance to really celebrate the seeds and the knowledge that accompanies those seeds. And we actually had our 2020 seed swap scheduled for like March 17th, March 19th, something like that. And March 16th was kind of the day that Michigan shut down. That was, our first round of orders about how we were going to deal with the pandemic. And that was stressful in the lead up because we were trying to figure out, do we cancel the swap? Do we have the swap? What do we do? I remember that being kind of a big deal. I had one more thing I wanted to say actually before we moved on. And it's that our seed swaps in the past had great social utility. You know what I mean? We also had educational offerings so that anyone who came to the seed swap was also getting a chance to learn about how to actually nuts and bolts save seeds. But it was a point, a location around which knowledge and community was built. And then with the pandemic, it became an item of great food system utility. We found that because of shortages and seed availability, um, our food security focus, which was always part of our mission but wasn't exactly in the foreground, became very important. And that was one of the main things about the pandemic, was finding out that this thing that we had in preparation for events that could affect people's food security, this is our chance to test it. Is this actually going to function in a time when people's access to food might be changed? So I kind of want to take you through that transition from our in-person seed swaps, which often happened at the library where the seed library cabinet, which you'll see pictures of later, is located. But yeah, the first thing we did was we noticed that there was a local business that had really understood the executive orders and was really following a lot of the protocols. It was a place where a lot of people were already coming and going to get food. And, our local food co-op is also kind of a point of connection for people who are interested in this kind of thing. So we approached the food co-op and asked if they would collaborate on a virtual seed swap. And what this looked like was people dropping off seeds at the front end near the cash registers, later on us sorting those seeds and then kind of redistributing them again through the front end of the store. So people could be stopping to get their groceries, and during this 1 week period, they could pick up their seeds that they had indicated were part of their kind of cart for the swap. And what we learned from that was that people like having a central location for this kind of virtual swap. It saved us from having to do postage, which, since we have a budget of, I want to say, less than $200 a year, it was really nice because postage would have been a pretty big deal. Another thing that we learned was that sometimes your partner organization, even though they do something that looks like inventory, they might not have the same experience with the seed swap piece of it. So we actually found that the system that we thought we were going to be able to just plug into at the co-op needed a lot of adaptation to work for the seed swap format. And that kind of inspired us to create our own seed swap format. And by that, I mean, it inspired Mike, because Mike is going to be presenting next, and he is the one who has done the lion's share of the work with developing Queen City Seed Library's system for virtual swaps. We ended up having a great experience with the co-op, and we really appreciated their partnership because they were kind of the training wheels that we needed to go out and try it on our own in a way that was more clearly connected with the seed library as it had existed in the past. All right, Mike, I think this is where I'm going to hand it over to you.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Abby. We learned a lot from the first virtual seed swap, and it seemed as though if we went it alone, we'd have a lot more flexibility and connection with making a very complicated process, doing it virtually, possible. So we started this, advance, please. Or what were we going to say? Oh, yeah. To test this out, because we really hadn't talked to people about a seed swap since last fall. That's the seed swap that Abby was talking about, was in middle of the last fall, 2020. So the first step was to survey the community, engage interest in a seed swap, and also to build in an opportunity for folks who were without seeds to participate so that they would be part of that whole process. Next, please. So we did a survey that had just 2 questions. The first question was, do you have seeds to swap? And would you participate in a virtual seed swap? The second question was, if you have no seeds, would you help with the seed swap to be able to participate? And the next slide is showing you that over half of the people that responded to this survey said that they had seeds to swap and they would like to be part of a seed swap. And on the other question, over 80% of the people who did not have seeds said that they would help with the seed swap in order to participate. So those were two interesting responses that I felt were indicating we should go ahead and do this. Next, please. So I diagrammed the process that I thought we'd go through, and these are the 4 teams that I thought needed to be put together in order to work the whole seed swap electronically. Next, please. And so I did another survey of the seed swap helpers, and next, please. We asked them which team they would like to be on, and as those results came in and each team filled up, I would highlight those in yellow, and then as the teams filled up, I would shut off that option until all the teams were filled. Next, please. And then each team received an initial contact email to get everybody on the same page so they knew what to expect going into the whole process. Next, please. Now, this is a difficult part, prepping the Seedfolks. This is a little, what I call a Rebecca Newburnism that I've just coined. We had to prep not only the people that were going to operate the seed swap, but also the people that were going to provide their seeds. And so in this picture, these are a couple past seed swaps, and you can see that people are reading, they're looking at the seeds, and they're very attentive and happy. And as Abby indicated, seed swaps for us were always a moment of joy. Very brief, considering how much work it takes to put on a seed swap, but it was a really wonderful time for people. So we're trying to translate a physical experience into a virtual one. Next, please. So we wanted to prep the people who are bringing seeds to the swap for consistency and clarity. So we gave them a 3-step process to follow. The first step being, after they packaged and labeled their seeds, what to do after that. Next, please. And the second step in that was to look at their seed varieties and indicate on this form how to describe those particular varieties, the things that would be on the seed labels, knowing that in the virtual seed swap, you wouldn't be able to, as in the last slide, pick up a seed packet and read the label and look at the seeds and all of that real intimate experience. So this was a way to try to bridge that gap. Next, please. The third step was to put that printed out template and the seeds into a paper bag and then take it to the drop-off location, which is our Peter White Library, which is where our seed library is located. Next, please. So that's when our first team got started, the seed pickup team, and they would visit the drop-off station numerous times, and then, next, please. They would transfer, go the other way. I think, oh no, you're good there. They would transfer the seeds to the website team. And next, please. And the website team would take those sheets of paper, so they didn't really have to deal with the seeds directly. All they needed was the data that was on those printouts. And there was an opportunity to type those out online and then print it. Some people just chose to handwrite it. And so they would take this information and put it on the website that we were using. Next, please. And this is the landing page for the seed swap. We used a product called ZenCart. One of our group had a license for ZenCart, and we'd used it for other connected or similar types of events. So next, please. After all of the seeds were input into the seed information was input into the system, this is an example of one of the pages. And an interesting feature, which we tried to warn people about, next please, was that you had to put a placeholder for a price in there. So it was a little awkward, but we told people, this is a free seed swap. There's no charge for the seeds, but this was one of the bugs I'd like to take care of if we do this again virtually. Next, please. And then finally, a week ago today, this email went out to tell people the seed swap is beginning, and people are given instructions how to navigate that website and how to use ZenCart's system. And we put a limit of 15 seed selections on the group, and that went on for, I think, 4 or 5 days. Next, please. So the next team that went into action, next, please, actually happened this morning. Here you see all of the seeds that were put into the seed swap have been laid out in some kind of order. And then we had volunteers who were on the fulfillment team, socially distance, and also fill the orders for each participant in the seed swap. So they had little paper bags, and they had that a printed out order sheet, and they would go around and put together the seed orders. So that happened. We started around 8:30. It took us about an hour and a half, I think. Next, please. Then starting on Monday, this coming Monday, we'll have a team, the seed order distribution team will be at the Peter White Library. Next, please. And there is our seed library cabinet as it stands now. The team will be there to help people on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday get their seed order. And as I said, they'll be in a brown paper bag with their name on it. Next, please. So I thought you'd like to know just how much people power, seed folk power it takes. And I think these are pretty close. I think this morning we had some no-shows, and so we did the fulfillment with a lot fewer people, and we could get away with that. All right, next, please. So this is pretty complex, but it gives you a picture of the operational process. The gold background area is what we've mostly been talking about, and each of the steps, the teams being formed, the seed pickup team, and so on, all in the gold background area. This tells you how much time we took to do each of those stages. Now, the pickup team and the website team, that was kind of squashed together, because as the pickup team would bring seeds to the website team, they would do their work, and it would happen sporadically. And that's why it took the 22 days that you see there. As it also shows on the box on the far left, it's a long process. I'm kind of surprised at that. It really took almost 2 months to do this. We started pretty much on the 28th of February, and we're into April, near the end of April. In any case, some things take longer than others. And I think the big holdup or the big complicated process is transferring the seed information onto the website and being able to operate something like that. We had a couple people that got very little training and were able to pull it off. On the bottom of the green part with the green background, this is the process that if you were putting seeds into the seed swap, you basically had just 3 steps, and you see 8 days for a seed drop off, 5 days to select, and then next week will be the 3 days for seed pickup. Next, please. So a few things we learned. Providing an opportunity for involvement helps people to support something they believe in. And involving people in preparing for the seed swap is a way to empower them to be a seed saver. And I think that having the people be involved, it made this happen. We couldn't have done it without all these people. And the payoff for them was that they got to participate. So they got to select seeds just like everyone else. And it brings them into the family of seed savers. And the last thing I want to leave you with is on the next slide. And we're ready for that. And it's a very simple idea that it occurred to us a few years ago, but I'm making it public now. A seed swap supports a seed library, and a seed library supports a seed swap. In that, the seed library can fortify a seed swap. So if you have additional seeds in your seed library, in fact, seeds that might be going out of date, those can be provided into the seed swap. And it sort of fortifies the seed swap in case not many people participate. And then, as happened this morning, we had a lot of seeds left over. And so those seeds were gathered up and they will be recycled back into the seed library. So it's this kind of self-perpetuating process. And I think that if you out there, our audience is running a seed library, a seed swap is a really strategic thing to do, because it's 2 ways to make things happen and keep your seed library viable. Next, please. This is my contact information. And so if you have any questions later or would like help doing your own virtual seed swap, please feel free. This email address is shared by Abby and I and our group of seed library people that work together. Next, please. Thank you. And my final slide is, I also want to thank Rachel for doing tremendous work. I wish I could have read a lot of this stuff. And for Rebecca, who has worked tirelessly to put this monumental project together. And I hope it's all going well. I think we've been a lot more successful than we thought we were about 4 or 5 days ago. So thank you again. And next slide tells us that we're open for Q&A. And our time looks like, oh my goodness.
We whipped right through it, Mike. Good job. I think that, one of the things that we did want to do was to give an overview of the process, but to leave time for questions, because what do they say? The devil's in the details. It's possible to take the rest of the time we have to go a little deeper. And
right.
So, yeah, Mike, do you feel, I was going to ask Rachel to read questions from the chat. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds fine for me.
Sounds good to me. First, I think her name is Alicia. She wants to know if you request seeds from seed companies.
We have done that in the past, yes. And in fact, it's okay if several of your seed folks do that, and um, they don't seem to mind. They know it's going to the same place, but if different people request, we've always been pretty good. I would say last year, or coming into this year, it was a little sparse because, as some of you may have experienced, there was a seed shortage, and that probably kept them from donating or contributing as much as they had in the past, different seed companies.
Actually, yeah, I want to take that back to this slide, which I really love, Mike, because it talks about how a seed library manages its books, if you will, its inventory of seeds, its collection.
Yes.
And I feel like collection is the word we often use, which sounds very intentional. And our seed collection is not always. It operates on the principle that plants are remarkably generous and they plan for waste. So a plant produces many, many more seeds often, not avocados. Avocados, I'm not talking to you, but many other plants produce much more than they need in order to maintain a viable population. So in requesting seeds from seed companies, that was how we started building our collection before we had a group of people who were really confident as seed savers. And, in the time that it takes for that group to, engage with some learning edges, to try some seed saving, to not be sure what it's going to look like next year and be kind of hesitant to give something to the swap if they don't know if it worked. Giving people time to get the education and the confidence and the experience to contribute back to the seed swap with their own saved seeds. I would say that those seed company donations were really critical for that. Sometimes we got things that don't work in our environment. Sometimes we got things like okra that is just, even in a hoop house, a pretty tough plant to get to maturity in the Upper Peninsula. So very sad for the okra lovers out there, because they do live here in the UP too. There are people who like okra, not very many, but a few. And so we would share those with other seed libraries, that map of all the Michigan seed libraries. Well, if we got sent something that really probably wasn't going to work out in our climate, we were able to share that with another seed library elsewhere. So yeah, kind of a long-winded answer to a very simple question, but.
Thanks, y'all. We've got some great questions coming in. Here's a real simple one. How many total orders did you create from this event?
Surprisingly fewer than the first seed swap, the first virtual seed swap. So last year we somehow ended up with 31 seed orders. And this year it was, we had a lot more people who said they would participate. But as it stands, we only had 22 actual seed orders. Now, I also want to say that a couple people sent emails and said, I really want to support the event, but I don't need any more seeds because I still have enough seeds of my own. And so I want to just let those be available for other people. So in terms of, and we did a couple, so we did the seed swap last fall, but right as the pandemic started, Abby and I and a group of people rescued our inventory of seeds from Peter White Library before they were closed, locked up. And we ran 2 or 3 seed projects from March until June, as I recall. And we provided a lot of people with a lot of different seeds. And so I think that sometimes maybe, and I'm still trying to figure this out, perhaps we saturate, or we just need to get into different audiences. And that's one thing that we're working on, is to just be able to approach other audiences and make sure they know about the seed library. So in fact, we did that just recently we did a seed start project where we had these little seed start kits, and we reached 2 or 3 different brand new audiences that we haven't even been able to, I haven't been able to do anything about that because of our seed swap that we just are about to finish. Abby, you want to jump in? Good. Okay. Ready for the next one?
Okay, what laws, state, federal, local, have you had to address? And what are the best environmental conditions for seed library?
Ooh,
Hmm.
this is fun. I feel like there's a couple questions in that one. I want to start with the state federal laws one.
Yeah.
So my understanding of Michigan law is that as long as the seeds that we are dealing with are annuals, as in they do not come back from year to year like perennials do, that lessens the likelihood of introducing an invasive species. So my understanding has always been that as long as we're dealing with annual seeds like vegetables, like peppers, that we are sort of not we're kind of like outside of many of those concerns.
Yes.
Now, another sort of interesting piece that I found out is that seed packets from seed companies are required to provide germination data, right? So when I buy a seed packet from the store, I can look on the back and it's going to be probably definitely above 80% germination, maybe above 90% germination. And that's going to be something that the company tested and now has to publish. That's another thing that we don't do. And because we're not selling the seeds, we are exempt from that. Now, in terms of best practices, boy, I wish we could. But since we don't have like a laboratory and a staff, we're unable to provide that germination information. So sometimes we just tell people to plant more and to thin, because, or another component of our educational pieces has been how to do your own germination testing before you plant so that you don't get a nasty surprise, which is that, 2 out of your 10 seeds germinated. There's another piece of that question that had to do with best environment for a seed library. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So, we were inspired by a card catalog based, library based seed library. That was the first thing that Mike saw at a sister seed library in Munising, Michigan. And it was kind of what fueled the conversation in our town to say, oh, well, do we have an old card catalog hanging around? It turned out we did. And the library seemed like a really good environment, a good place to have that resource located, because it is open to everyone and is like sort of somewhat supervised, but not like, so someone could engage with a resource like this and they had someone they could ask for help. But since it's kind of a standalone resource, it took some community building with our library, and we got a director who was very excited about the project, and that really, we took off after that. So because of its accessibility, the library was a preferred environment for us. And we may have a lot of questions. So Mike, do you want to weigh in on that or do you want to move on?
No, I think you did fine.
Great. We've got a couple questions. People want to know, what are your plans for the fall? Are you guys going to have another seed donation drive, seed swap, something like that?
I would like to catch my breath. It's an interesting thing. We've had seed swaps. This was number 6 or 7, the 6th or 7th annual. And the fall we had tried, we'd done one swap, maybe the first in the fall, and it was a little, maybe didn't do so well in that it wasn't late enough in the fall that people had their seeds ready. I know myself, I'm preparing seeds or harvesting my seeds. Well, not harvesting, but cleaning them and getting them ready for storage all the way through the winter. I feel as though, I'm letting them dry out, and the more time, the better, as long as they don't mold. So we have been doing our swaps in March or at the very late March. So that means I have another year to worry about that question. I'm not sure if we'll do something in the fall or not, but tend to think we probably won't.
You know, in years past, we have done a potluck in the fall to celebrate
Right.
the harvest and to offer a little bit of guidance about how to process and store and save your seeds. And yeah, with COVID still, you know, Michigan's at another spike. It's hard to tell what we might be able to do in the fall in terms of gathering and sharing food in a potluck context.
Yeah.
But I think embedded in this question is also, you know, would you continue with a virtual seed swap? I'm very eager to get back to in-person events, and I'm very grateful to Mike for, you know, being that leader in adapting and going virtual. But yeah, Mike, would you do the virtual seed swap again once we can go back to in-person?
Well, a lot of groundwork was done. Things were just created from scratch, and I think it'd be a lot easier the next time. Um, and I think people will be more willing to participate. The people that helped me, these 4 different teams, they were all very gracious and accommodating and very happy to do whatever needed to be done. For example, uh, some people didn't quite have a job to do, so we created a job for them so they would be able to participate in the seed swap. That job would be, here's a bag full of beans. They need to be packaged for the seed library, and so here you go. And they would do that, and that would be like their ticket to the seed swap. So any way you can get people to uh, contribute their energy to your seed library is pretty well accepted, at least in our experience.
Oh man, we're getting some really great questions, y'all.
Hard to
One
choose.
thing, one thing that I think a lot of people are interested in is kind of the quality of seeds that you accept. Kind of, what do you consider older seeds? Do you preserve, do you encourage heritage seeds? Are you working with a seed library like ethics document about sharing seeds from Indigenous communities? So what kind of seeds do you work with?
Go ahead, Abby.
Okay. This has been a big topic of conversation among all of us. You know, I'd say that there's about 10 people who are core to the organization. And, you know, we talk about this all the time. And it started out with logistical concerns. That question I said of what happens when you give someone some seeds, or I shouldn't say we give, when someone selects seeds from the library and they don't perform well. You know, kind of whose fault is it anyway? And one of the things that I continue to return to um, is that this free service encourages people how to learn about being self-sufficient regarding their food supply. There are going to be mistakes along the way. And if we make the conditions for seed viability, or you know, the sort of perfect recreation of the parent plant, if we make those rules too tight, we're going to exclude a lot of learning and a lot of potential growth. So one of the things that helped us navigate this question of like, well, are the seeds good enough to go out? I mean, I just learned how to seed save a couple of years ago. Like, I'm not a seed breeder. Like, was the work of a guy named Joseph Lofthouse, who we encountered through a seed saver in the Upper Peninsula named Dawn Anderson. She introduced us to Joseph's work on landrace seed saving, and we invited him to present virtually at one of the swaps, at one of our educational sort of offerings. And the landrace seed saving concept, which permits the sense of crossing is okay between plants, you know, between you know, different varieties within the same family. It's less emphasis on what I would call archival preservation, or the purebred dogs of seeds. So I think Seed Savers Exchange and that notion that we want to preserve the Nebraska wedding tomato as it looks, because it has cultural significance. The landrace seed saving concept is we want the tomato that's going to grow during climate change conditions, that's going to provide lycopene, vitamin C, and you know, the nutrition that we need. So I started thinking of our library as representing multiple philosophies of seed saving. So there's the landrace seed savers, there's the, the heritage or, preservation style seed savers. There's people kind of all over this spectrum. There's the doomsday seed savers, who are like, we're really planning for an economic apocalypse and that's why they're saving seeds. All of those different approaches or philosophies, as well as the seed rematriation, all of those sort of figure in. And we haven't developed like a labeling system or anything, but we definitely try to make that part of the conversation, that we are a combination of many different philosophies or approaches. And that's, wow, that got a little bit deep, because I think people might have been asking like, what we put a label on our like posters and promotions that says we accept open pollinated seeds
Right.
that are not under patent. That's basically what we say. And we've had a lot of internal discussion about what that ends up meaning in practice. And I don't think that we have it totally figured out yet.
I want to add also to that we have paid attention to seed viability. In fact, as Abby knows, and Rachel was there too, we have a viability chart and we go through the seeds and weed out the seeds that are just beyond their date of use. And so we try to work on that. That's another aspect of what Abby was talking about.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. Some people are wondering, does the Queen City Seed Library stay open year round, or do you close in the fall? Is this an annual event, or can they get things through the entire growing season?
At this point, it has always been open. And I live just a few blocks from the public library where the seed cabinet is. So I would go in there during the winter months. I'd go in there and check to see if someone has filled out a seed order. We have a system of they fill out I have it here somewhere. What is it called? It's a sheet. It tells us what their contact information is and what seeds that we've loaned them. And I would check that every so often and then initiate some contact with that person. But generally, people don't start paying attention to the seed library until right about now. And then we just have to watch it throughout the summer and stay on it.
Yeah, I would say that it is open year round and stocked seasonally around bumps. We've tried, in addition to the spring bump, we've tried to do a fall bump of fall planted crops in order to encourage season extension stuff, and provided literature alongside that that's like, here's how to do a fall planted garden. But yeah, it's open year round, and we really try to stock it in the spring after the seed swap. So we try to host the seed swap before we need to really stock the seed library, because that's our stuff.
Okay, so folks want to know about donation of seeds. Is there a database on how you track who donated what? Are you able to give them feedback about how the seeds grow each year?
Oh, this has been another big topic, because we do have in our kind of core planning group people who have experience with the USDA seed bank and who are, not just seed savers, but have been seed breeders. And I can share my own perspective has been that we don't want to go down that road, because it would mean that we would need a live inventory potentially, and that would be a lot to maintain on the backside. And also that the seed swaps are a place where people can, over time, come together year after year. And if I'm the person standing behind my seeds at the table and I talk with someone about how the Robichaud red bell pepper worked out and how it works out for me in the Upper Peninsula, and I'm able to finish it in 70 days, then that person can take that pepper, and if they have a real poor experience with it or a real good experience with it, I hope that we're going to see each other again next year. But you can see that I'm very much on one side of a spectrum about the interpersonality of seeds. And I think that there would be great value in being able to offer feedback without having to be in the same room. We just don't have the staff to do that, because once you sort of put it out there, then you have to, support it and maintain it. And just like a message board or something, you need to have a moderator. And as a community organization that's just like, yeah, 0 staff, very tiny budget, we have not done that. I would be curious to hear about people who had, though, and I would love to learn more.
Okay, here's a real easy one. What kind of packaging do you tell people to use? What kind of packaging do you use for the seed library, and then when you're getting donations?
All right. One of the things I did to get the seed swap people ready for packaging their seeds, I give them a list of 3 different packaging options that they can use. Ziploc bags. They could do a origami seed envelope, and they could do, you can just take old return envelopes that you're going to recycle, seal them, cut them in half, and then fold over the edge, and there you have a finished seed envelope. So we try to give people options for what they have. In the seed library, we've been focusing on the reusable Ziploc bags, and then we also provide a template of labels that seed savers can print out and then write in their own information. What do we have there? Oh, that's one of our seed envelopes.
This might be like a 2x3. We've played around with lots of different sizes because it turns out that the card catalog is designed for 3x5 cards, but it has a rod running down the bottom. That was like part of how card catalog systems used to work. So you can actually use a 3x5 container in our specific seed cabinet. So that kind of pushed us away from paper for a number of reasons. I mean, I love the look of paper and I love engaging with paper, but it was really expensive to buy the coin envelopes, and we kind of weren't getting them back. The plastic envelopes, which are reusable, I called it an envelope, it's a bag. These were so much less expensive that we went in that direction. We also noticed that a lot of the seed savers who were like trading via, like I said, these really experienced seed folks in our lives, they were all using the plastic bags, and it permitted us to try the less expensive option. But like Mike has pointed out, we always give people the option to reuse and to upcycle in order to make their seed envelopes if they have the time and capacity to do that.
That's great, y'all. So we have a question. Do any of you have issues with people taking seed when you know that they have no intention of returning anything?
Oh, look at Mike's face. This happens sometimes at the seed swaps too, where it's a kind of special seed greed. Your eyes light up and it's like you're in a cave of jewels and you just want all the jewels. They're so beautiful. And this led Mike's wife, Zita Ann, to coin the phrase seed swipe. We want to have a seed swap, not a seed swipe. So how do we encourage people to kind of get in touch with their seed greed, recognize it, and quell it a little bit? And we've tried having like rounds where, you can go out and swap like, I don't know, like an auction or something. Like you can do it for 5 minutes and then we all have to take a break so that you can't just plow through it. We've also given people a specific number of envelopes at the swap in order to say, make your choices wisely. Involve this sense of prioritizing. What am I actually going to plant in my garden this year? And having signage that talks about how many seeds you need for a viable population versus how many seeds usually come in a packet. Trying to put some education alongside that. In terms of like straight up seed hoarding, like people just taking seeds, that's a lot of people on our like planning committee. We're seed hoarders. Not that we have no intention of planting them, it's just that the collection grows and grows. And I didn't know this until the pandemic, and we were Zooming with one another, and I was seeing other people's houses and the walls, like floor to ceiling, of seed stuff. I think that that's, there's a lot of different kind of flavors here. One flavor is I'm taking seeds and I don't plan to use them, I'm hoarding. Another one is I am banking genetic material that I am interested in experimenting with at some point in my gardening career. And it might not be this year, but it's going to be someday. And again, because of the principle of the generosity of seeds and plants themselves, we have not ever confronted anyone, I don't think, directly about seed hoarding. I don't know. Mike, do you have any other thoughts there?
I was going to say, the part of that I was thinking of is when the public comes to the seed library cabinet and they see that there are all these seeds, and it looks like if you don't read the directions, you could just take the seeds. Or they may fill out our seed checkout form that looks like this, and they might fill it out a little incorrectly, wrong email address, wrong phone number, just not legible. And, they might not even put any seeds on the list that they're taking, but try to give the impression that they've done everything they needed to do. So I get, over the last several years, yes, we get a few of those, but, nothing that to get worried about. It happens.
Thank you so much for the generous responses. I just have one more question for you all as we're getting close to the end of this time. What kind of resources or training videos or something that you accompany with your seeds, either virtually or in person?
Mike has a background in graphic design, so he has been very good the whole time about including pictures along with directions. So some of the things that he used in today's presentation were things that volunteers had received as part of training. We have a Google Drive where all this stuff is accumulating, and I dare say it might be time to organize it. Mike, do you have any training resources to suggest? I know that your presentation about how to start a seed library has been helpful to others because it is procedural.
Right.
Is that presentation available, or might this one sort of be available?
Right, they're available. And I was thinking of, if you're referring to seed, some sort of seed presentation, or how to grow or what to do. When we did our latest seed starting kits, we provided a list of resources that was on a Google Doc that we made available to all the people that were part of that Seed Start Kit project. So that's one of the things that provides video links and other web resources. It's all available too, if you're for the asking.
Well, the timing has worked out really well. Thank you so much, Rachel. Are there any other things that we need to do before we close?
We have to make sure we log out so the next presenter has access to the
Well,
channel.
in that case, I would like to thank everyone so much for being here today, for being at this seedy event, and also for your interest in the seeds. The seeds appreciate our interest in them. We are co-evolving and continue to do so. It's a dynamic process. And your interest and your desire to learn is something that's going to keep that relationship with the seeds alive. It's really, really an honor and a privilege to have had a chance to speak with so many of you today. And I know we didn't get to all the questions. If you would like, because we're not the event organizers, I can't promise that we'll be able to get back to you with the questions. So if you got a burning one that's really, it's keeping you up at night, don't hesitate to reach out to queencityseedlibrary@gmail.com. And thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Really enjoyed it. Appreciated the questions
Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
too.